Hello, and welcome to Mysteries, Monsters, and Mayhem. This is your podcast if you like things that are out of the ordinary. If you like mysteries. If you like the unexplained, the monsters. What is it we said last time? The unsolved and the unsettling. There you go.
Woo!
Good job. Hey, great. I just used my one brain cell for the day on that.
All right, and we're spent.
Yep, that's sorry. We're just going to be drooling for the rest of this podcast.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I do spit a little bit.
But nobody can see it.
That's true. Except you, and you kindly don't call me out on it. So you go first with the intro.
Okay.
Who are you?
Hi.
Hi.
My name is Shannon, and I'm actually quite far from an alcoholic. My name is Shannon, and I come from a family of alcoholics. Does that count? Okay, I'm a writer. It's too late now. I broke it. I'm a horror author and a college student getting a business degree. Parent, mom, cat mom.
I was like, mom cat?
Cat squid. I'm just throwing out shit now.
Just throwing out nouns.
Yes.
Slapping two together. Wheelbarrow.
Cactopus.
Okay. My name is MB.
Wait, I'm not done. Just kidding.
My name is MB and Paperclip Hammer.
Oh.
Those are the two words.
Paperclip hammer.
Writer, retail drone.
Retail drone.
Yeah.
Awesome.
I'm like, what else am I?
You gotta say cryptozoologist.
I have a cryptozoologist in training.
Cryptozoologist.
I'm a cryptozoologist in training, and retired rodeo clown.
You know, at some point you'll have to stop doing your makeup like that. Speaking of word games, my brother last night, there's a bar called Gasoline Alley downtown, and one of my brothers used to work there. So another brother posted last night just Gasoline Alley, which I'm sure he was like, hey, I'm going to be at Gasoline Alley is what that was. Mm-hmm. But I posted Lemonade Street. Just started posting random things. Like, okay, I can play this game.
I do that.
Oh, okay.
Okay, so
what's been happening with you lately? Anything interesting happen at the store? Anything to report?
There are always interesting things.
Anything dealing with people.
Yeah, anytime you deal with the public, it gets interesting. We did have, so I work for a consignment shop, and we had somebody drive up from Walsenburg on Saturday when it was snowing because the woman saw something online that she wanted. So her husband they drove up, came to our store, bought 2 shirts, went out to lunch. We had a very lovely conversation about where to go for lunch.
Oh.
They were very nice people. And then they were just going to drive back to Walsenburg. And I was like, please drive carefully.
I've been missing All Gone Pizza in Fort Garland, which is near. Well, I have to go through Walsenburg to get to Fort Garland, to get to my cabin. But I've been missing that. It just makes me think of that. And I was like, hey, could she bring you some barbecue up from the barbecue place? We can roll and smoke garage. I feel bad asking Jeff to drive me to, like, Denver, so.
Denver, when we went on our little road trip, that was the farthest I've been since, I don't know, hell froze over.
Yeah.
I don't go anywhere.
I've been up there because I have an appointment every 3 months up there, a standing appointment, so that's it.
My husband did drive to Canyon City one day.
Oh, I haven't. I mean, hey, this summer you and I went down to Fort Garland, to the cabin.
Oh, that's right, we did.
Or early fall.
It was in the
probably
fall.
September. Or October, right before we closed it down for the summer.
Yes.
For the summer. Closed our cabin down for the summer.
We don't want to enjoy it.
We don't want to.
It's punishment.
Have fun while we can actually go to it. So there you go. You've been there too.
I have.
And that's the summation of it.
And I did go to Kansas.
I did go to New Orleans.
So
I guess the more we think about it.
We've done a little bit. Though, when you say I went to New Orleans trumps Kansas. Although Kansas is fucking fascinating.
Anytime. In terms of cryptids and creepy things.
And all the little towns have kept ties to their heritage, to where their settlers came from. And
yeah, that's cool. Because we talked about it when we did that. Like, Colorado hasn't done that quite so much unless when you start getting up into the mountains, you start seeing more of that culture. But, well, and, Kansas is a big place for Wild West stuff.
Yep. Dodge City.
Kansas, Missouri, all of those areas. And then, like, the gangster stories and stuff.
Oh, yeah.
That era, same thing. Era. I always say era. That era, same thing.
They're always driving through Kansas.
Right? So.
Except today, we're going north. We're going to Minnesota.
Minnesota?
Yes.
Is it Fargo?
It's not, but.
I'm going to Italy.
Ooh. See, you're always one-upping.
Oh. Kansas, New Orleans. Does it count though if I wasn't a fan of New Orleans? Nolans. Yeah, does count. Except I did have fun.
And you had really good food.
I did.
So,
I had good food.
Although I've had really good food in Kansas, so.
I'm not sure if it would have been better to see the Mississippi before or after I knew how many bodies were probably under it, as in that episode. So.
There is a lake. At some point, I'm going to talk about, there's a lake in New York, because I'm like, one of the articles I saw was, yes, when you're swimming in this lake, you're swimming with this many dead bodies at least. And I was like, ew.
See, that always has fascinated me since I learned that one of the towns my grandpa lived in is now a reservoir, and it was one where they didn't like take down the buildings or anything. They just flowed the water right in there. And so that creeps me out, and I can't explain why it creeps me out, but it creeps me out. I've written stories that I've had published, multiple stories detailing water, and murky water gets me. I feel like I was murdered in like a lake or something in a past life.
I've read some of those stories. They're quite creepy.
Yeah, because they
very well done.
Thank you.
So what have you read? Where have you eaten?
I'm still reading. I'm reading Mexican Gothic by Silvia Moreno Garcia.
I really liked that book.
She's got the Gothic thing down. Like, I've been trying, because I like to experiment, and I like to learn new things and write new things. And I'm like, okay, how does one get that Gothic feel down? She really has it down.
But at the same time, it's such a different setting, and
it's in Mexico,
and I really liked the character, because I think sometimes for me, the Gothics, sometimes the female character is not exactly what I would like her to be.
Interesting, because I kind of been struggling with the character a little bit, because in some point she's stubborn, so she's strong in that way, right? But she's also flighty, but we're in her head and we're seeing that she knows that this is something she puts on.
Yes.
Which is helpful, because I think most, if not all of us women know how to put on that persona when we need to get something. Very much, I think a lot of women are very conscious of what they're presenting at any given time. I mean, everybody is, but I'm talking just in day-to-day life, not I'm at a conference or I'm doing this.
Right.
It's, I need this mechanic to listen to me, and you have to figure out if this mechanic is the type who's going to be better to you if you act like a ditzy female, or if you let them know that you know what you know. So, yeah, in that, that character is very good at conveying that, and I wonder how many people are taking in that she's consciously like, okay, I'm going to stop being flighty right now.
Yeah.
And so having said that, then I have that appreciation for the character.
I really enjoyed that book a lot.
Yeah. It's frustrating, of course, and valid, because her hands are so tied.
Yes.
About things that she only has so much power. It's set in the past, and I can't remember
the time period.
Yeah, but it is in the past. So I think at one point she mentions that women can't even vote in Mexico or something like that. I don't remember, but there's something like that. And so whenever that is, but yeah, so she's out there trying to help her cousin who's in this weird situation. Her cousin is constantly drugged. She can hardly ever see her because this house is controlling her. There are these people who made money from silver mining, to give background to people listening. Oh,
and they have all this ostentatious silver, isn't it, in the dining room?
Yes.
Where it's
and they
everywhere.
Just polish it, but I don't think they use it.
No.
But the house is falling apart. It's just drudgery in the house. It's dusty and it's just, yeah. there's creepy things happening. She's having dreams. She's sleepwalking. Yes. And she's trying to figure out the Doyle family, who still think they're above everybody, even though they lost their fortune, which is fascinating.
Yeah.
And, she brings eugenics into it because the progenitor, the patriarch of the family is fascinated with the fact that her cousin Catalina and the main character, that they're, not white. They're not pure in any way because they're mixed, and he keeps talking about mestizo, and he's like, you're darker than your cousin. That's his first introduction to her. Oh, you're darker than your cousin, and it's interesting. So I'm not done with it yet. In fact, I'm probably a little less than 3/4 of the way through.
Oh, okay. It's about to kick in.
Yeah, pretty sure. So the character's growing a lot too. So it's good.
And a lot of people we know in common have been talking about this book.
Yes. Oh yeah. It's made a big splash. The cover's gorgeous.
It is. I don't know how I read. I'm usually not at the head of the pack. I'm not the first person to read stuff and watch stuff. But for some reason that came across my radar, and I put it on hold at the library and got it. Because sometimes I'm really surprised. It's like, you have holds available, so I'll go download them all. They're like, what the hell is this? When and why did I put this on hold? I don't know. I just read them.
See, I have that with, we have the Netflix mail service still too. Where
we still do DVDs. We do that too.
And I mean, we used to go through it so rapidly because you pay so much. So we were like, hurry up and return these so we can have more movies. And now it's just kind of,
I've got one I've had for like 2 years.
I know.
And they sent me an email and it said, if you still have this and you're still enjoying us, that's cool. But if you'd like to watch something else, you could send it back.
Oh, you want it? There's somebody with this on their wish list. That's the thing though. My wish list has been on there so long, and there are things that were long wait and short wait.
Yeah.
And so by the time I get the movies now, I'm like, what even is this? Because I'll add them because I read a list.
Yes, right? And I'll go, I don't want to watch this.
I know. Jeff was like, here's these. And I'm like, what was this even?
Well, I read a book by one of your favorite authors.
Stephen Graham Jones?
No. I wasn't going to make you guess. I was going to tell you.
Oh, okay.
It was Jeff Strand.
Oh, yes.
Yes.
He's a fairly new discovery for me, in the last year? But I've been devouring his books.
So I read Grave Robbers Wanted, No Experience Necessary.
Oh, yeah.
Which is really, I want to say funny. Oh, okay. First of all, it's a horror with, his books have a lot of humor in them.
Yes.
So that is what draws me to them. And this one is the first one in a short series. I think there are 3 or 4 books in the series. And this guy, he's kind of your average guy, and his wife is a nurse, and they've got 2 kids. And he's sort of in between careers, and his wife is very supportive. She's like, if you want to do this, I will support you. If you want to do that, I will support you. Just fucking pick something and do it. So he starts out, he's looking for money because he hit a car and he's trying to pay it off without his wife knowing that he hit the car. So this woman approaches him and his best friend and is like, hey, I need a favor. Do you want to earn $2,000 or something, or $20,000? They're like, what do you want us to do? And she goes, I want you to go dig up my dead husband. And he had a key, and I believe it was buried with him. So you just need to dig him up, get the key, chuck him back in the ground. We're good to go. Chuck him back in.
Maybe kick some dirt over the body.
Maybe. So they talk with her, and they finally decide, well, okay, because it's $20,000, so it's $10,000 or something like that. So it's $10,000 a piece for doing a very unsavory job. Well, it turns out he's buried in the woods, and so they go dig up the coffin, and all of a sudden there are gunshots coming out of the coffin.
Oh,
so this man has been buried alive with a loaded gun. And it just gets worse. I mean, the story doesn't. The story is very entertaining because you're like, what the fuck could possibly happen next? But it just keeps going.
Yeah, the last one I read, they're down in the Amazon, and so all the things that can happen there, including like cannibals and double agents, basically.
Oh, I did read. He writes YA as well. I read one of his YA books. It was A Bad Day for Voodoo or something like that. That one was really good. And I read the one about the werewolf.
I haven't. Nope.
I think that one. I think there's also more than one. I think that one's also a short series. I read that a few years ago. It came in. I bought a bundle of books online, And this is probably the only book in the bundle I've read. And I walked around for like a week going, why the fuck is this not a movie? It is absolutely perfect.
I feel like there's a few. What's funny is I found him because of a book, and it was like a dirty murder mystery detective thing. Ooh. But naughty and just inappropriate. And I was like, this is fabulous. I laughed so much. And then that's when I started looking at everything else, and I was like, oh my gosh, because he has just an array, and there's stuff, I think there's stuff that's pure horror, but most of his stuff has the big sense of humor, because he did Clowns versus Spiders, I think it's called, and of course that is meant to be what one imagines it would be, clowns versus giant freaky spiders.
The one about werewolves, it's these two mafia errand boys, essentially, and who do odd jobs for whatever the crime bosses tell them to do. And they're like, go pick this guy. You need to go pick this package up at point A. And I think they're in Florida. Not 100% on that. But you pick it up here and you're going to drive it here and drop it off. And they're like, all right. Well, they get there and the thing they're picking up is a cage and there's a man locked in the cage.
Great.
And the people are like, he's a werewolf. Just leave him in the cage. Don't fuck with him. Don't let him out. So they put the cage in the back of the van and they're driving. And of course the guy's talking to them. And they're looking at each other like, there's no fucking way this guy can be a werewolf. The werewolf, that's not real. So you can guess what happens. He is. And then of course before they know this, he talks them into letting him out. Mayhem ensues.
He is, his books are really the definition of mayhem.
Yes.
Fabulous. And he puts out a few a year. I think.
I want to read more.
And I can just eat them like candy.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yep.
So have you been watching any TV or movies?
TV. I watched The Flight Attendant.
How was that? That's what's her name? Kaylee Cuoco?
Yeah, Kaylee Cuoco. It's not funny. I'll just tell you that right now in case anybody thinks, Kaylee Cuoco, it's going to be funny. It's not. And but it's good. It's intrigue. It's a murder mystery. She wakes up next to a man with his throat slit.
Ooh.
And there's international travel. She's very troubled. And hey, we mentioned this in the last one. So I have zero patience for alcoholics. Yes. Mm-hmm. And when I watch movies where the person is an alcoholic, I struggle with that too.
Fair.
She does have alcoholism, but we see more and more snapshots of how this started, and the thing is she grows a lot as a character. The character art is fantastic in this. And there's an actor I hadn't seen forever. I don't know his name, but he was in Grey's Anatomy, and that was the only time I'd really seen him, and he plays her brother in it, and there's just, it's fascinating, and I do recommend it.
Oh, good.
Yeah, it's intense, because there's somebody trying to kill her, and and she's trying to find a way to figure out what actually happened. But she was blackout drunk when it happened.
Like the girl on the train.
Yeah. So
that book.
Yeah, I've been enjoying that. I mean, enjoy is a weird word for something that's serious and disturbing. Yes. She talks to the guy in her head a lot, but that's how we get a lot of the information about her. Yeah, it's well done.
I'll have to check it out.
Did you watch any new TV shows?
I did. Well, I watched a movie. I rented a movie. Good heavens. I paid extra money for a movie. I watched The Stand-In with Drew Barrymore.
What? I've missed. Is it a new one?
It's new, and she plays a Hollywood actress. And she
That's a stretch.
And she also plays the stand-in.
Okay.
So the actress has to go to rehab. So she hires her stand-in to go to rehab for her.
Oh.
Then So I will just say this. It's got some very amusing moments, but it is not really a comedy. But if you watch the preview, it sort of looks like, oh, this is going to be funny. And parts of it are, and then it goes dark.
Oh.
It goes very dark because she gets home from rehab and she goes to the actress and says, I think the actress's name is Candy. And she says, hey, we've got an offer for these appearances. How about I do them? We'll split the money. And Candy's like, all right. Because she wants totally out.
Okay.
And here's what was really interesting to me. In neither one of these characters, And of course, they obviously look a lot alike, but they don't look like twins. There are obvious facial differences. There's a point where they're standing face to face talking to each other, and one is taller than the other. Huh. And it is not Drew Barrymore as you're accustomed to seeing her. She is not polished at all. She's not cute. She is not, she's not like hugely fat or anything, but she's not, this little tiny trim thing.
Yeah.
It's really, she's purposefully showing her age.
Good.
In some of these.
I appreciate that
Yeah. I really liked that part of it. And it was a twisty, interesting story, but not, don't go in it thinking it's going to be a Drew Barrymore comedy. Because you're going to get some laughs in the beginning, and then you're going to go, oh, wait, what? No.
Was it Redbox?
No, it was, did I get it on, I can't remember if I got it off Comcast, off DirecTV rental, or if it was on Amazon Prime rental.
Okay, interesting. I'll have to look at Amazon Prime because you like me some Drew Barrymore.
I think you would like the movie.
But there was a TV show, and I didn't keep watching it, so I don't know what it was. Is it Maggie Gyllenhaal? Is that Jake Gyllenhaal's sister's name? It made me think when you said she was showing her real self and her aging, Maggie Gyllenhaal is in it. And at one point there's just this very honest scene with her body, this is my body and it's not perfect. And I was like, I so appreciate you doing this and not letting it be edited out or body doubled,
Yeah.
And it was just wonderful because of course she's lovely, but she's not perfect. There's like stretch marks, there's a belly there, and it's great. I realize I should maybe clarify, since I've now 2 episodes in a row been insulting toward people who drink, that I grew up in a family that had that there were relatives with alcoholism problems, and so I dealt with that a lot, and so that is why I have very little patience for it. And I spent most of my life being worried that I could become an alcoholic because it ran in the family, until I realized I just don't get addicted to substances that way. Whatever is there isn't there with me, but it doesn't mean I didn't spend about 40 years worrying about that. I was about to pause it for that, but that alarm went off really fast.
Yeah, we're like looking at it. Who the hell's car alarm is going off?
Yeah. So, no offense. It's not that I'm judging so much as it's been a big thing in my world for a long time, and so I just can't handle it, and I don't like being around drunk people.
It's an honest reaction.
All right. So I did watch a movie too.
Oh, what'd you watch?
We watched Aeon Flux because we're doing, I think I said 2 episodes that our weekend movies have been kind of girl power action flicks.
What the hell is Aeon Flux?
It's well, again, I keep saying older with these. And what does that mean? 90s, early 2000s? It has Charlize Theron in it. And it's, there was an MTV show. Gen X here. And it was a cartoon. It was called Aeon Flux. Aeon. And here's the visual that I always remembered from it, is that in the beginning of it, there was a scene where she closes her eyelids and she catches a fly in her eyelashes. So they actually duplicate that, but it's just how quick she is. She's somebody who, and they're rebels in, again, a post-apocalyptic world, right? But she's got all these snazzy, they dressed her like the character in the cartoon. Oh. And it's just this futuristic type clothing. It's interesting. There's a woman that she works with who has had her feet switched out for hands. So she has 4 hands, so she can pull herself up by her feet if she needs to. She can pick up weapons with her feet. It's the creepiest looking thing every time she's on screen.
I'm like, how do you buy shoes?
Yeah.
Or do you just wear gloves?
She doesn't wear shoes.
Oh, that's...
But they live within this walled city. Nobody's been outside of it. There was a virus, and then there was a solution, and the solution caused problems. So, all sorts of things. I would be giving away if I said what problems. But anyway, we watched that, and it was fun to watch something that I hadn't watched in ages, and Charlize Theron's always badass.
Yes.
And it was fun because I'd watched that cartoon when it was on MTV back in the 90s or whatever the heck that was on there. And I watched a Liam Neeson movie that we rented from the Redbox. I think it's called An Honest Thief. And he tries to turn himself in because he's in love with a woman, and he was never caught. He was bank robbing. He's got millions of dollars. And he lives this very unassuming life. He's not living large off the millions of dollars. In fact, they're all sitting in a storage room. And, well, most of it's sitting in a storage room. So he tries to turn himself in, and it's just not work. First of all, they don't believe him. They're like, yeah, you're like the 30th person who's called us today claiming to be the whatever bandit. And he says, well, just, send somebody out, something. He keeps calling him, and he's like, I want to come clean. I want to do my time so that I can then be with her. I want to make a deal. I want to turn myself in for a deal, give you the money, and then when I get out, I can get married or whatever. And then 2 agents come, and one of them, he says, all right, well, here's my key to the storage room. You'll find $3 million there. And you'll know that I'm telling the truth. And they go there, and one of them's like, well, we're keeping this money. And he goes back to kill him. And the other one kind of gets dragged along. Because he tries to argue at first. So they do that well. It's not like he just instantly bends, right? And he just gets pressured. And yeah, he goes along with it. And then it just all goes downhill from there, of course. Because it's an action flick with Liam Neeson. But
that sounds interesting.
It was good. The gal from... She started on Grey's Anatomy as one of the wives. She's a redhead, and then Private Practice.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Another one we're not going to be able to remember her name. She had her own sitcom, Bad Judge.
Yes.
I love that show.
That was good.
But yeah, it lasted 1 season.
Yeah. So she was in this. I hadn't seen her in a while.
Kate Walsh.
Yes.
Woo-hoo! Good job. Pulled that one out of thin air.
Straight out your ass.
Yep. But I decided to go with thin air. Thank you very much.
You did. Good job. I didn't.
You know what rabbit hole I have been falling down lately?
What?
And I blame Rebecca Rowley.
Oh.
The New York Times food, online food section. You can subscribe to it.
Oh.
It's like $40 for an entire... You can get a 2-month free trial, which I did at her recommendation. And then when it was up, they said, well, if you want to continue, it's like $40 for a year. And I was like, take my money. Because I have this association in my head that New York Times is going to all be fancy, foofy food that I'm never going to make.
Yeah.
And which is not to say that they don't have those things that I'm like, no, not ever going to happen. But they also have simple, good-sounding recipes, and the people they've got writing about them are really good. It just makes your mouth water. And I'm going through the site going, I could make that. I could make that. Okay, I'm not ever going to make that. I'm not going to make an egg salad sandwich because there are more steps in this recipe, but you're going to take pictures when you're done. I was like, no, I'm not, because I'm going to make egg salad that takes a minute and a half to make, and not the one that takes a day.
No.
That is not going to happen.
Interesting. I'm too lazy for that still. I keep hoping once I'm off all of my medications that I'll have that energy back again. Because before all that, I was always making lots of stuff. And it was fun. Yeah. And I enjoyed it. And I had energy. And I took the children places. It was amazing. So maybe once I'm there. Although right now, since I'm going... I'm trying to cut out inflammatory foods, which is like half of them. So, but yes. I'm excited because I found like a Instagram site for somebody who's on that diet and posts all these awesome recipes that look amazing. So I think I'll just be able to pursue different kinds of recipes and learn how to do those. There is
an organization, and I'm never going to remember their name. You've heard of Meals on Wheels.
Yeah.
It is something similar. It's not exactly like
Food
Meals
for
on
the
Wheels.
Brood.
No.
No.
They do specifically tailored meals. They deliver them. So they've done them for people who are recovering from COVID. They do them to people who are recovering from surgery or who are battling cancer. But it's tailored to their dietary needs for whatever they're going through.
That's amazing.
And people are just like, it's in Denver and Colorado Springs. It was in the paper, and I can't remember the name.
Dag nabbit.
Dag nabbit.
Dag nabbit. Well then, since you're gonna do that to me.
I just read it not that long ago.
I know that's just brains these days. Yeah. There's no room anymore. It made me think. I've been pondering starting to go through my little handwritten recipe books, and because I have this Snapfish thing where I can do. I paid a certain amount years ago, and now I get a cheaper photo album anytime I want to make it.
Oh, nice.
So I always get a big discount on it. And so I was like, I want to go through and start making the recipes, taking a picture of them, and then putting them into a book.
Yeah.
So that I can have a nice one to look through and have the pictures. And then if I can make 2 of them or whatever, and the kids, if they wanted one, they could have the, you know. So, I don't know. It's a possibility.
What a good idea.
Right?
When the girls were growing up, it was really funny. They were always like, oh, I would make something. They'd go, oh my God, I love this. Can I have this for my birthday? And I'd be like, how did I make this? Because it'll either, I didn't follow a recipe, like chili and spaghetti sauce, stuff like that. I don't have a recipe for. I just make it.
Right.
But some stuff, I make it and I really like it, and then I lose the recipe. I lose a piece of paper. I don't know where I got it, or I changed it so much. And I'm like, well, I can try.
I do that with food too. And Jeff will actually say, if he really likes something, he's like, are you going to write this one down?
Yep.
And I made something a couple months ago where it was just a total fluke because I had nothing. And I was like, I don't want to spend any more money. I don't want to go out. And so it was just, what do I have in the pantry and the freezer?
Yep.
That I can throw together. And it ended up being amazing. It was like this angel hair pasta, because I had angel hair pasta. I never use it.
Yeah.
So it'd been sitting there forever. And then some frozen shrimp I had. And I had a little bit of fresh spinach and like a little fresh onion and garlic and stuff. But it was like canned tomatoes and this and that I just threw in there. And so I actually went back to like the Instagram photo and it was all, what's in there? And then I made it again. It was still good. I was so happy.
I hate that when I do that, because something turns out really well and I'm like, can I remember how So the other day I had a recipe and I sat there as we were eating dinner writing stuff on the so I was like, I didn't use this and I did use this and I added this, and
yeah,
I made like Hopping John soup.
I don't know what that is.
Hoppin' John, black-eyed peas.
Okay.
Yeah, so had collard greens and black-eyed peas, but I didn't put ham in it, or I used chorizo. Shit, that was some good stuff.
I grew up on beans and cornbread being something my mom made, and
Yum,
then
yum, yum.
Until I got my gallbladder out a year and a half ago, I suddenly stopped being able to, like a decade ago, eat beans, and I would be violently ill and just a lot of pain. And so we didn't know why. The gallbladder had been a problem since my 20s. I didn't know what it was though.
Right.
So anyway, I got it out and I've been slowly kind of, okay, can I eat beans on my Qdoba bowl again? You know, just slowly adding it back into things because I just couldn't eat beans. And then I can, and I don't have pain and I don't get violently ill, and it's amazing. So I sat there and I was like, okay, I got to remember how to make beans, you know. And I mean, it's easy. There's very few ingredients.
Yeah.
But yeah, I did it. But I used vegan sausage instead of what I normally would have done would be either ham hock or actual sausage. The vegan sausage was really good, and I don't know if I can remember which kind I got, because it was just like, all right, this looks like sausage.
Beyond Sausage makes a really
I think it was the Beyond Sausage.
Because I have a vegetarian in my life who updates me on all the...
Good, yeah. So, it was good. I was so happy.
All right, so I'm going to
start?
Yeah, I'm going to start. I get to start this time. So, for anyone who didn't know, because this is due out on February 24th. February is Spunky Old Broads Month. I kind of love that. So I said, there've got to be spunky old broads out there for us to talk about. And there are, but they're fucking hard to find.
They're not only hard to find, but what we discovered was that the people who have been passed down as spunky old broads all this time are like in their 30s, maybe their 40s if pushing it, because historically...
Or they weren't spunky.
Or you look them up and it's really mundane compared to what it's been passed down.
Or if you look at women if you try to Google women who succeeded after 40, you're going to find huge long lists of actresses. That is not a slam on actresses. I'm very happy that they're coming into their own, but I mean, I'm talking 90% of the lists are actresses.
Yeah. Not a political achievement. Not a scientist. Let's not talk about Deb Haaland. How old is she? Navajo on the, you know?
Yeah.
And she seems older, so it's a, like... Let's not talk about any of that. Let's not talk about achievements in science, technology.
Or politicians or, yeah.
Yeah.
So before I got into this, I decided who I was going to do. And then I got into it and I went, well, she wasn't the person I thought she was, but it's interesting to hear about. Because we have talked a lot about the era. We've talked about Bonnie and Clyde, more about Bonnie, but we've talked about the
Starkweather and yeah.
So I'm going to talk about Ma Barker, and I went to Wikipedia, I went to biography.com, I went to the FBI website.
Ooh,
the
fun.
FBI has something, and that's kind of interesting the way they present it. And there's this website called allthat'sinteresting.com. I think I just got like a couple of little details off of there. So what's really interesting is we all kind of have this image of Ma Barker because she has been portrayed in the movies since less than a year after she was killed. Less than a year after she died, they started making movies. So in 1940, in a movie called Queen of the Mob, she was played by Blanche Yerka. And it was known that this was based on Ma Barker and the gang, but the names were changed at the behest of the FBI.
Oh.
They were asked to change the names of the characters. In 1949, James Cagney had the movie White Heat. White Heat. I didn't think I enunciated that very well.
White.
Heat. But there was a character named Ma Jarrett that was based on Ma Barker. In 1959, she was played by Jane Crowley in the FBI story. In 1960, she was played by Lorene Tuttle in Ma Barker's Killer Brood. In 1970, this is killing me, Shelley Winters played Ma Barker in an episode of Batman, the TV series, and in a movie called Bloody Mama, which was a Roger Corman film.
Oh, good Lord.
It's very violent. It's very over the top. I actually want to watch it because it looks kind of funny. And it was actually played for that. It was action and played for laughs.
And Shelley Winters.
And she's just, get 'em, boys.
Oh, yeah.
Like, in 1974, Eileen Heckert played her in another film called The FBI Story. Apparently, you could just keep churning those out every couple of decades. Sure. And in 1996, I think this is the most recent one, she was played by Teresa Russell, who I love, in a movie called Public Enemies, which is not the one with Johnny Depp.
Oh, I was about to say. You saw me.
Yep. I saw the question forming. It even says right here, not the Johnny Depp film.
Thank you.
And there have been, I think there are characters in cartoons based on hers, maybe in DuckTales, but don't quote me on that. I'm not DuckTales. So, Kate Ma Barker. So she was born on October 8th, 1873, died January 16th, 1935. So she was 62 when she died, which is practically an ancient for a gangster in that era. Mm-hmm. Because Bonnie Parker, who died actually just a few months before, was 24 years old when she died in 1934.
And she was an old maid at that point.
And no, she was married.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
Not to Clyde, but she was married. She was born Arizona Clark, and I thought these names were a recent phenomenon, but no. She was born Arizona Clark.
No, I knew an older woman named Arizona.
Oh. Mm-hmm. Anyway, in Ash Grove, Missouri, and she was called Aerie for short. So for years, she was called Aerie. She married George Barker in 1892 when she was 19 years old, and they had 4 sons together. Herman, who was born in 1893, Lloyd, who was born in 1897, Arthur, who was born in 1899, and Fred, who was born in 1901. And these are very, very period-specific names. I mean, so keep in mind, that means she had 4 kids, 4 boys in 8 years. That's right there. That'll put you. That right there will put you in a certain frame of mind. There is a rumor that I found it in a couple of different places but couldn't substantiate it, that she saw the Jesse James gang ride through town as a child, and that apparently sparked her thirst for adventure. Which, who knows?
I think they sparked a lot of people's thirst for. I mean, there's a lot of stories of them riding through town, and like my grandpa has a story of his family cowering down when Belle Star. They would ride through the Robbers Cave.
I just think there had to be a period of time in American history when any group of more than 2 men on a horse, people just assumed it was a gang.
But many times it was.
Well, yeah, it was, but now...
Kind of makes sense, though. If you're... So back then, I mean, you just lived on your farm out in the middle of nowhere, right? And then you would ride into town on your own. And so probably there were a lot of lone horses riding into town. True. And not a lot of people running in together. It's not like a motorcycle gang.
But I'm thinking if you live on a bigger farm, you and a couple of ranch hands are driving into town. Although, well, anyway, we're getting way off track.
What? That never happens.
So in 1910... her son Herman, who was the oldest, who's only 17 years old, was arrested for highway robbery. That was actually... Literally, highway robbery. He also ran over a child in the getaway car. No, I could find nothing else. I don't know what happened to the child, but... and the 4 brothers were involved in a lot of different crimes, but they grew in seriousness. It started off as a thievery and robbery and armed robbery and murder. Excuse me, it just kept escalating. They learned a lot about the life of crime because they belonged to the Central Park Gang, which was a bunch of bank robbers. And no, it was not in New York.
Uppity.
Okay. It does. It was not in New York, but it does sound very posh. The Central Park Gang. So, poor Herman. I'm sorry.
That was a weird noise.
Herman died in 1927. He had shot a police officer at point blank range after a robbery. He was injured in a car crash, and so he committed suicide to escape capture and escape punishment.
Wow.
That was probably the nicest death any of them had. So in 1928, Lloyd was in the federal penitentiary in Leavenworth. Arthur was in the Oklahoma State Prison, in an Oklahoma State Prison, and Fred was in a Kansas State Prison.
Nice.
So
spread it around.
So all 3 of them are in prison. So Aries, and after Aries married, she took the name Kate. So for a long time, she was Kate Barker. Kate's husband, George, was last listed as living with her in 1928. 1920, a lot happened in 1928. There are several different theories about why they split, and one is that they were just tired of each other. I mean, that's pretty boring, but that's a theory. One was that she was leading a dissolute life and was dating other men outside their marriage. That would certainly make me want to... But that's how we define women, by how they're expressing their sexuality.
Oh, yeah.
So, if he had been doing it, nobody would have called him dissolute.
It wouldn't even be terms for a divorce.
No. They wouldn't even think... Well, of course he was. Poor thing.
Yeah.
No. But this whole defining women by their sexuality just bugs the fuck out of me. There is some support for the idea that when they were raising the boys together, she always took the boys' side, whether it was people in town complaining about them. They could do no wrong. She always supported them, and she knew what they were doing, but they were her boys. She never punished them. She never corrected them, and he did not agree with that. But by all accounts, he was a very...
Diminutive? Because if he's not standing up...
He never stood up to her.
Okay.
He never exerted his whatever...
His influence.
He never tried to stand up and go against her and discipline them.
And look what happened to his boys.
Yep. So in 1928, he frittered off. Flittered off. Flittered.
Yeah, I saw a whole conversation about fritters. I bet there's a come and go down the street that has actually pretty good apple fritters, and I get them there.
What?
Yep.
How long have you been sitting on this without...
Well, it's not like it's like the ones you get. I don't know. I never got them before. I'm a chocolate person, but for some reason I've been obsessed with apple fritters lately. They're so good.
I'm always obsessed with apple fritters. Now we have totally derailed the conversation. Anyway, so after George Barker was really not very involved in his sons' lives. However, after they died, he tried to make a claim on their assets.
Oh, of course he did.
Yeah, he didn't get them. So from 1928 to 1931, Kate, or Ari, she was living in a dirt floor shack. She was apparently living in extreme poverty while her sons were in prison. And this may be when the whole loose woman definition came about. That's what the FBI called her, loose woman.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
Excuse me. Not the modern day FBI.
Yeah.
J. Edgar, go piss in your ear, Hoover. I don't know. I'm obsessed with J. Edgar Hoover pissing in his ears.
Whatever floated his boat.
Yeah. So, and I'm like, there's nothing like living in abject poverty and doing whatever you need to do to survive, to have somebody else
to be boiled down to being called a loose woman.
Yeah. For somebody else to pass judgment on you, because
women couldn't hold the jobs that men could. They had really very little to fall back on, which is why this rich history and prostitution, right? As I was saying to somebody else the other day, I was like, nobody chooses prostitution for fun.
No.
No. Nobody's like, this sounds great. I would like this unwashed man that I don't know to do terrible things to me.
Yeah.
But yeah, you get judged for it.
So her husband has left her. They've separated, and her one son is dead. The other three are in prison, and she's living in poverty. Although she was somehow, after her husband left, she took up with a man named Dunlap. It's spelled both ways. When Lloyd gets out of prison, he comes home with Alvin Karpus, who was one of his prison mates, and they form the Barker Karpus gang.
Okay.
So, Dunlap and Kate travel with Lloyd. They travel with the gang. So, which is kind of bizarre. So this is, after this starts happening, she is first listed on a wanted poster as an accomplice to the Barker Karpus gang. They list her as Old Lady Ari Barker.
How old was she at that point? Like 30?
Yeah. And there was $100 reward.
Ooh.
Which is probably a lot back then.
Yeah, that is.
There are people I would turn in now for $10 and a pack of gum.
I would give the people the pack of gum.
Yes.
For some.
So, Arthur gets out in 1932 and joins the gang. So they go to Chicago because they think, let's work in Chicago. But they didn't want to work for Al Capone. And apparently, you did not work in Chicago unless you worked for Al Capone. So they went to St. Paul.
Okay, then.
I was like, well, I had no idea about this part of St. Paul. Apparently, St. Paul, Minnesota was a haven for criminals back in the day because a lot of the police force was corrupt. A lot of wanted people could go there and just hang out and hide there. And I completely lost my place. Oh, and the Barker Karpus gang had protection from the police chief, Thomas Big Tom Brown, who guided them from bank robbery into kidnapping.
My uncle's name is Tom Brown.
There's
probably about 5 quadrillion of them.
Probably. Did they call him Big Tom?
Probably not.
Okay.
They might have.
So,
he's small.
At some point in all of this, the gang decides they don't trust Dunlap, who is rumored to have loose lips when he's drinking.
Who doesn't?
True. Girl,
never tell you.
Some of us have loose lips blah, 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 all the time. But, so they are getting kind of disgusted with him. So they get tipped off about a raid. Big Tom tips them off about a raid that's coming.
Narc.
So they get out of town. But on the way out of town, they shoot Dunlap and dump his naked body near Webster, Wisconsin.
Oh.
Apparently, Ma, or Kate, didn't seem to have much an issue with this.
Done with him.
Okay. So the gang relocated to Menominee.
I love
looked
that.
it up.
Yeah.
Because I was like, I I don't know.
Oh, you never heard of it? I always
No.
love that.
Menominee. And so Fred hid Kate, or Ma, hid his mother in different hotels and hideouts. Now, this sounds like a nice thing for him to do. And they even, you know what they did? When they were going to pull a bank robbery, they would send her to the movies.
Oh.
She was never part of the criminal life. She knew what they were doing, but she wasn't part of it.
Yeah.
But they kept her, wanted to keep her from knowing too much. There was probably a trust issue there because her boyfriend, Dunlop, was a loose talker. But also they wanted to keep her separated from their girlfriends because she did not like them.
Of course.
Not any of them.
She's a mother, was a mother of 4 boys.
Yep.
And yeah.
She didn't like anybody's girlfriend.
No.
And did everything she could to drive them off and to argue with them and pick fights with them. So in 1933, the gang was back in St. Paul. And and I'm not by any means listing all of their robberies, all of their crimes, all of their killings, because I'd be talking tomorrow. So 1933, they're back in St. Paul, and they
Who did they sex?
They were sexting.
They were sexting. On paper. Writing dirty letters. They successfully carried out the kidnapping of 2 different wealthy businessmen. So they got $100,000 for the William Ham and $200,000 for Edward Bremer. And they let both of them go. They got the ransom and let the men go. I mean, far from home, but still. Now, this was the first time the FBI used latent fingerprint identification to link them to the Ham crime. And it was on the notes. So it wasn't visible fingerprints. It wasn't fingerprints they could lift off any other surface. It was using what's the gas they use? Oh, yeah.
Now everybody does it on TV with super glue.
Super glue,
It's
yeah.
that. But that was the first time the FBI used latent fingerprint identification. So that's a big deal for them.
Woo! That's what it sounded like when you're like, wait, big fucking deal.
No, it was. It was the first time. It was new technology. So Arthur was arrested in Chicago in 1935. And through his notes, his papers, they were able to track where the rest of the gang was in Ocklawaha, Florida. It's coming back to Florida. See?
Ooh.
All this stuff happens in Florida. And it was even, they gave the code that it was written in. But unfortunately, Ma Barker had written something referencing an alligator.
Also, somebody was like, Florida! Is that it?
Well, no, it was like Alligator Bob or Captain Alligator. And it was a stuffed alligator or live alligator. I'm not sure which. But it was an alligator. It was an attraction at a local restaurant.
Oh, okay.
So it was like Alligator Bob or something. I should have written that down, but I did not. And so anyway, on January 16th, 1935, law enforcement arrives en masse and surrounds the house. And they don't realize that the other gang members have already flown the coop. What was his name? Carpus. Carpus is gone.
Carapace.
The Carapace is gone. It's only Ma and Fred. They're the only 2 people in the house. So the feds ordered a surrender. Fred yelled something back, all right then, and started firing.
Okay, so he got his mom killed.
And the intense firefight continued for about 4 hours. It was like 6 a.m. to 10 a.m. Local high school kids pulled up in their cars and watched. People brought picnics.
I have stories like that around Bonnie and Clyde too. I mean,
I have to question the picnicking part because who the fuck picnics before 10 a.m.?
It's brunch.
Well,
that was the version then of brunch.
Okay.
It was, hey, let's take some maybe some eggs and some fruit and some croissants and watch these people shoot at each other. Cool.
So finally they call a ceasefire. I mean, they're shooting at this fucking house for 4 hours. So they stopped shooting. And they had shot tear gas in.
Okay.
Here's the part. I did not get to follow up on this, but I desperately need to. The FBI ordered Willie Woodbury, a local handyman, to enter the house while wearing a bulletproof vest to see if there's anyone still alive.
Oh my God.
It's like, hey, citizen, come here.
No, fellas, no.
Yeah.
I am eating a croissant.
Can I finish my bloody first? So, yeah, I gotta know why they picked this guy and sent him in. I just randomly...
He was just real close, picking his nose, watching himself go down.
So, anyway, the agents entered, the brave agents entered the house after Woodbury announced that Ma and Fred Barker were both dead. So, here's the interesting part to me. Yet another interesting part. Fred's body was riddled with bullets. Ma had only been shot one time, and they were both in like the front bedroom of the house.
Uh-huh.
So it was not clear, and it's still not clear, if she fired back on the officers or not.
Well, they didn't know about the whole looking at their fingers for...
Apparently not. Apparently there was what they called a Tommy gun was on the floor between them, but I don't know if they didn't preserve the evidence or what, but no one has ever solved, was she actually shooting back to defend her son or not, to help defend. So this was, remember I said this was in January? Both bodies went on public display. Dead bodies.
Again, they did that during the Wild West all the time. Whenever somebody tells me that we could never go down to Running Man status or something like that, I point to the fact that people have, for eons, loved to watch public executions, to look at dead bodies. I mean, look at all the people who came out for hangings, for beheadings, for all that stuff. There is bloodthirst. People slow down and stare at rubberneck at accidents. Why? They want to see what happened and they want to see bodies.
Yep.
I mean, that is human nature.
It definitely
Boy, could I go on that.
And it wasn't just that people wanted to see the bodies. People wanted to have their picture taken with the dead bodies.
Absolutely.
No,
So Hunger Games could, in fact, happen. Yes. Don't tell me that's not true.
The bodies were unclaimed until October, when some family finally claimed them and buried them.
Good for them.
So, I named all the movies at the beginning, and I may have even missed some. And I didn't even talk about TV, except for Batman. The media has portrayed her as this criminal mastermind. There's really this whole, she was telling the boys what to do and directing them. J. Edgar Hoover of the brand new FBI claimed she was, here's his quote, the most vicious, dangerous, and resourceful criminal brain of the last decade. So since then, they believe that he put that disinformation out on purpose to justify the fact that they shot an old woman. She was 62 years old.
I maintain, though, that if her son hadn't started shooting, he brought it on them.
Oh, definitely. He definitely did. She obviously, and everybody said she knew about the lives they were leading. It was no secret what they did, but she didn't help plan them.
No, she condoned it.
She was a caretaker. I mentioned that they sent her to the movies when they were committing the crimes. Her presence, now I will say, her presence as an older, respectable mom figure allowed them to pose as a family. So they could rent a house. She could go out and buy groceries. She could go, because she wasn't the young girl, the young blonde girl smoking a cigarette. Mm-hmm. She gave them this air of respectability. Now, Karpus, who apparently he may have written his story, he said that Ma Barker was, and this is a quote, just an old-fashioned homebody from the Ozarks, a simple woman, adding that Ma was superstitious, gullible, simple, cantankerous, and, generally law-abiding. She wasn't suited for a role in the Karpus-Barker gang. Everybody else calls it the Barker-Karpus gang. Yeah. He just switched that around a little bit. Now, the modern-day FBI, the site that I went to, presents it very briefly and factually that Karpus was the brains of the gang and did all the planning, that Ma Barker was definitely an accomplice, aiding and abetting. They do not even mention what degree her involvement was, what degree of involvement she had. I think part of it, too, is the photo that's always used of her. She looks very stern and unsmiling.
Didn't everybody at that point in pictures, for the most part, still kind of have the...
Well, I don't know back then how much access people had to dentistry. And especially for, I think for a lot of women, if you had bad teeth, you didn't give a big toothy grin.
No.
But you also, yes, you were told to look serious. Getting your picture taken was an occasion, and you were told to look serious, not, it wasn't supposed to be frivolous. But so she died, what was the year? 35. She died in January of 1935 with Fred. Arthur Doc Barker was killed trying to escape Alcatraz in 1939. He was apparently the one, if you had something bloody and gross you needed to have done, you asked Arthur to do it. Lloyd spent 25 years in Leavenworth and was actually released. He was paroled, and his wife killed him after he was released. So nobody... I could not find out why. But after 25 years, well, I'm like, I don't know. I would think you'd be used to life without him after 25 years.
Right,
but why not
you would come in and you'd be like, you son of a bitch, you've left the towel on the floor one too many times. Shoot you.
But I'm like, couldn't you have just disappeared? Couldn't you have just left and no forwarding address?
Yeah.
One would think.
Guess not.
So yeah, it surprised me how many websites, how many places I went to look for information on Ma Barker still portray her as this hard-hearted criminal mastermind when that was never her role. She obviously loved her sons, and she obviously enabled, and aided and abetted, but the whole gangster mom controlling them makes the better story.
It does.
So
of course it does. It's funny because mine kind of boils down to love for your son too.
Oh.
In fact, I named it A Mother's Love.
Oh.
So that's fun. Okay. So I'm going to be speaking about somebody whose last name I'm probably going to butcher along with other words because she is it's all Italian.
Because I have forgotten how to read.
That's right. It's inevitable one of these days. So I'm going to speak about Leonarda Cianciulli. She was known as the soap maker of Correggio.
Ooh, how wholesome.
Here's a word. a word.
Does she have
Would
a
you like to
Etsy
hear
shop?
a word? She would have. Tell you what. La saponificatrice di Correggio.
Ooh.
That's the soap maker. Okay. Born April 18th, 1893 on Montella Avellino, Italy.
So she was of an age with Ma Barker.
Of an age. Yeah. She was. I think I have the age she died. We'll talk about that later. Everybody dies. It's not a spoiler. Okay. Leonarda dealt with emotional abuse and neglect from her mother growing up. Her mother had been forced to marry her rapist when she became pregnant from the act, so she held a lot of this against her daughter.
Okay.
So one can imagine how tumultuous that household must have been. I'm sure it was terrible. Leonarda's father died when she was young, but when her mother remarried, they still had very little money. They were just always poor. She went on to she tried to kill herself at least 2 times. It's documented. Leonarda did.
Oh.
As a teenager or whatever. At 24 years old, in 1917, she married a registry clerk named Raphael Pansarde. Her mother, they were trying to set her up. Her mother and her stepfather were trying to set her up with wealthy men so she'd be well off. And
as one does with their daughters.
Of course, back then. And so they were not happy when she met this registry clerk who didn't have much money. And so her mother cursed the marriage. She put a curse on them. And this is something that Leonarda very much believed in. So she was distraught that her mother had done this to them.
Did you, at any point, did you envision Sophia Petrillo from the Golden Girls?
Yeah, and also, what is it? Is it the mother or the grandmother of Morelli in the Janet Ivanovich books?
It's his grandmother.
It's his grandmother is constantly putting like the evil eye.
Yes.
She's like, every time she walks by her, she does the evil eye. So she's accursed 1,000-fold. So 3 years later, after their marriage, they moved to her husband's childhood home, but he was unable to make enough money to support their growing family. She took a job, but she also ended up getting busted for fraud. I could not find exactly what her crime was. Okay. I imagine she was maybe, passing bad. She was probably trying to buy stuff with bad stuff.
Yeah.
We'll just... So she gets busted for fraud in 1927. She does go to prison for a while. When she's released, they move again. They move to Lacedonia. And that's... these poor people. And then in 1930, 3 years after they moved to Lacedonia, the Irpinia earthquake occurred, which was it has a name. For a big earthquake, it destroys their home.
Oh.
So they're basically homeless for a little bit, but they move it this time, and this is where they're just going to stay, to Correggio, Reggio, Emilia. So in short, Correggio. Here she opened a little shop where she sold soaps that she would make. The townspeople came to know and respect her. She was this superstitious person. She read tarot. She believed she hypnotized people. She felt she could tell the future. They saw her as a medium, and there were no issues with it. The town liked her, and they came to her for help with things.
That makes sense.
Yeah. She, having believed this over the years, had gone to a fortune teller. She'd gone to a Romani palm reader. Both saw bad things in her future. Both of them told her, oh, yeah, life's going to suck. The palm reader told her she'd have children, but they'd all die young. The Romani palm reader said she saw prison in her right hand and an asylum to the left. Or so this is claimed. During the course of their marriage, Leonardo got pregnant 17 times.
Oh, my God.
She miscarried 3 of them. And of the 14 children who were born, 10 of them died young. So
I can't even imagine the toll that takes on a person.
Physically, mentally.
In every way possible.
And we're talking about a woman who already grew up with her dad was her mom's rapist. And although he died when she was a toddler, I believe. And a mother who hated her, resented her. So when World War II broke out in 1939, with Italy backing Germany, her oldest son, Giuseppe, signed up for the Italian army. So here's where things go terribly wrong.
Okay.
She was very overprotective. She was known to be overprotective of the 4 children who were still alive. And everywhere said Giuseppe was her favorite. He was also her oldest. So, whatever. But determined to keep him safe, Leonardo decided human sacrifice was the only way to undo her mother's curse.
Okay, that's a bit of a leap. But
that's what I'm saying. It's like nothing up until this point.
I mean, I understand wanting to break the curse, and I understand maybe you think you need to kick it up a notch, but...
There's Mama Bear, protectiveness, and then there's, my son's in the army. I need to kill some people. She felt the only way to feed the curse was to give it a body to protect a body. So,
okay.
Her first victim was 77-year-old Faustina Setti, a woman who'd come to the shop asking for help to find a husband. Leonardo said she knew of someone in Croatia, which was then called Pola. She told Faustina to write some postcards and letters that she would post them for her, just letting her know her family was okay. If anybody ever asked you to do that, the answer is no. Clearly. Yeah. Clearly, there's so many stories of that.
Here, write up some postcards telling your family that you're fine. I'll mail them for you later. And I'd be thinking,
well, because she also said, well, keep this a secret. Let's keep this on the down low. Okay. You're going to go out there. You guys are going to get married. And then, then you can let people know. So she does this. She also is writing her letters, Faustina, writing letters to Faustina from the suitor.
Right.
So getting her all excited. So when it comes time for Faustina to leave, she stops by the shop to say her goodbyes. Leonardo offers her some wine.
As one does.
That's right. But usually one does not put some drugs in the wine.
Arsenic or whatever.
Whatever. When Faustina passed out, this isn't your standard woman poisons. It's not.
Oh.
Leonardo drags her into the closet, hacks her into pieces with an axe. So she killed her with the axe first, and she chopped her. It was an axe. Chops her into 9 pieces. She would later tell authorities, I get to quote, so, because she not only openly talked later, but she wrote a memoir. No. Quote, I threw the pieces into a pot, added 7 kilos of caustic soda, which I had bought to make soap, and stirred the mixture until the pieces dissolved into a thick, dark mush that I poured into several buckets and emptied in a nearby septic tank. She collected the blood, and in her words, I waited until it had coagulated, dried it in the oven, ground it, and mixed it with flour, sugar, chocolate, milk, and eggs, as well as a bit of margarine, kneading all the ingredients together. I made lots of crunchy tea cakes and served them to the ladies who came to visit, though Giuseppe and I also ate them. End quote.
Oh.
Yum, yum, yum. She also made some chocolate.
Now, what would have been really awesome is if you'd had some little crispy chocolate cookies.
I seriously, if I'd had the stuff last night, I was like, oh my God, it would be amazing to have given you tea cakes, given you little something when you got here, and then be like, and then she served her friends tea cakes. Yeah. She benefited financially from this, having been paid a significant amount of money for her aid in finding the suitor in Croatia. I think for this woman, it was 30,000 lira. Her next victim was Francesca Soavi, a 55-year-old teacher who was seeking a job. Leonardo said she knew of something in Piacenza. She had Francesca write letters like Faustina, collected her payment, drugged her, and killed her the same as she had the other woman.
Can we pause for one moment and just what was the name of the first woman, the 77-year-old?
The 77-year-old was Faustina Setti.
How about the fact that 77-year-old Faustina was actively seeking a husband?
A dude, yeah. She's like, hey.
She had it going on.
I need to get me some.
So, okay. So now we're at the 55-year-old who's merely looking for a job.
And so she was going to be sent to one, so everything went the same way. And she died September 4th, 1940. And the same way, chopped up, tea cakes. Wow. Yum, yum, yum. Her final victim, Virginia Cacioppo, was a 53-year-old retired opera soprano who'd performed in Milan at La Scala, which was supposed to be a big opera house. Seeking a job, as Francesca had been, Virginia was promised a secretarial position for someone big in the theater industry.
Oh.
Of course, there was no job. But for this promise, Leonardo collected the most money yet. I think the last one, Francesca, was just 3,000 lira. The three women netted her total about 83,000 lira, as well as jewels and bonds. Because Virginia here paid her 50,000 lira and gave her jewels and bonds. Leonardo also went and sold off, went through her stuff and sold off some of her belongings for more money. Now, they were never rich, but they were doing okay at this point because she had this little shop. It didn't say they were in poverty anymore. Anyway, Virginia's remains met a slightly different end. Again, in Leonardo's words. Quote, she ended up in the pot like the other two. Her flesh was fat and white. When it had melted, I added a bottle of cologne, and after a long time on the boil, I was able to make some most acceptable creamy soap. I gave bars to neighbors and acquaintances. The cakes, too, were better. That woman was really sweet. End quote.
Oh, yuck.
Yeah, I love it.
Yuck.
She would just totally, she had to have been sociopathic this whole time to just be like, yeah, just gonna kill some women and eat them. And make soap. The other ones must not have been round enough.
I kept their blood and dried it in the oven.
Yeah. I mean, this whole thought through thing. Unfortunately for Leonardo, and likely lucky for other middle-aged women seeking help from her, her final victim not only had a sister-in-law who was close to her, but said sister-in-law had seen Virginia walking into Leonardo's place before she disappeared. Not only that, but Virginia, even when told to keep everything on the down low, we're talking this woman who's probably big in society for a while.
Yeah.
Yeah, she was telling everyone. An investigation led the authorities to Leonardo's son, Giuseppe. They decided he'd done it, because of course a woman wouldn't have done it. Unable to let her son go down for her crimes, especially since they were to protect him, Leonardo eventually admitted her guilt and gave all the details. There was and I didn't write down this quote, but she, they said she got on the stand and she had these tiny dainty little hands and these big dark eyes, and she politely corrected the person questioning her as to how she'd done something. So she wanted to make sure that they couldn't pin anything on Giuseppe. She gave all of the details. That's why. She was like, listen, you can't think it's somebody else. Here's everything I did. You can track it. At one point, not believing she could have done this, they had her go to the nearby morgue with people, recess, and the attorneys and the judge went to the morgue with her and watched how she handled a human body to take it apart. She was tried in 1946, found guilty and sentenced to 30 years in prison, and then to be followed with 3 in an asylum. They also still tried Giuseppe because his mother had given him the cards and letters to mail because he was going to Pola. So that's what she was like, okay, my son's going to Pola. Hey, I've got a job for you in Pola, or I've got,
Hey, when you're there, drop these in the mail.
Oh, and that was Croatia, right? So where she was sending the first woman. So he was like, oh, okay. And so he mailed him when he went there. His mom had asked him to do something. He'd also tossed something into the river, which it turns out was wrapped bones. But she was like, hey, I'll throw this in the river. And it was all tied up and everything. But Leonardo stated repeatedly that he hadn't known, her husband hadn't known. And he didn't know there were human bones in there. He was just doing his mother's bidding. While in prison, Leonardo wrote a memoir about what she'd done called An Embittered Soul's Confessions. In it, she detailed how to turn human remains into soap the correct way.
Oh.
She lived to 76 years old, dying October 15th, 1970, in the asylum in Pozzuoli. Her death was listed as following a period of cerebral apoplexy, which I looked up, and that's a term for stroke, so I assume she just had a stroke. But okay. So I don't know. Yeah. I'm like, so did she have multiple strokes, and that's why you're calling it a period of cerebral apoplexy? Or I don't know. Somebody just didn't know what it was, didn't look it up, and said it was a period of. The pot in which she boiled her victims is in the Criminological Museum in Rome, along with several other items from the case. On the other hand, she bragged of having donated her copper ladle, which she used to skim the fat from boiling the victims out of the kettle, to Italy when they needed metal during the war. She was very proud of it. She spoke it on the stand. When my country needed metal, I gave them that copper ladle. Good for you, girl.
Thanks.
Way to go. My thing is, I wondered, and of course, I guess I'd have to read the book. I really just found the same information on every site I went to. I did see they had a 1-year difference. Some of them said she was born 1893, some said 1894, so I will say that disparity. But was she going for 4 women to kill to make sure that her 4 living children remain living? Would she have stopped at one more? Did she just get so taken with, this is kind of fun? Because apparently she seemed to think it was fun. And she didn't even sell the stuff. She gave away the tea cakes and she gave away the soap to people, which is a great way to get rid of evidence. Everything went into a septic tank, the river, and people's bellies and bodies, right?
I can't even imagine what would you think if you were her neighbor and you're like,
well, as funny as one website was like, there were often foul stenches that would there was every little once in a while there was a foul stench that would come from her shop, but everybody figured it would go away. And I'm like, you make that sound like, there were 3 women. So it wasn't, I will be posting pictures of the 3 women. The one, I think it was Francesca Soavi. On the picture, she's called Clementina Soavi, but in the article, she was still called Francesca. I find it interesting. There's just always so many names back then. People just like Bob Barker just changed their names, or their nickname was something completely, they were Daryl and their nickname was Fred, and it was not their middle name. You know? Like, why?
That happened a lot in my family. So I can't.
So my sources were thefamouspeople.com, bestoftruecrime.com, ststworld.com, and of course Wikipedia. So that was the soap maker.
I can't. I'm trying to imagine hacking up a person.
Yeah.
She had to have given this some thought. You can't just...
Yeah, it was all planned out ahead of time because she got the letters. She just carefully... This wasn't, there's this woman sitting here in my shop and I'm going to sacrifice her.
And okay, this is gross, but I'm thinking it had to take some time to boil them down because I'm guessing she didn't have a pot big enough to put an entire body in.
Well, it depends because she did say she has this big pot and I have a picture of it, and there's instruments next to it. It's not that big. It's probably, I don't know how to give a size thing for it, but yeah, she would have had to.
She couldn't do the whole body at one time.
No, she would have, and that's why she chopped them into 9 pieces and did.
And why did she decide to eat them?
That's the thing. That's why I'm like, clearly there was something wrong with her before this. She didn't suddenly go, boy, my son's in the army. Time to become a cannibal.
And I wonder, what was she getting away with?
before that nobody knows about. Mm-hmm. I tried to look up too whether Giuseppe ever was sent off, but he wasn't. He was found. He was not convicted, so he was found innocent of the crimes. But I imagine that all of this took some time, and he might have been released from the army or something. But yeah, there was no follow up on him.
So, are you going to read her book?
I doubt it. I don't even know if I'd be able to find it.
It would make a heck of a movie.
The other thing is, if she was already going to be in there until she was older and really, what did I say, 77 or something like this, 70 something, that's probably about as high as people made it, you know? I don't think anybody well, actually, I mean, she died in 1970. Yeah. So, I don't know. I don't know what the life expectancy was, but...
I don't either, but the fact that her first victim, the 77-year-old, who was looking for a husband, nobody was like, this poor, frail little old lady needs to be home in bed. You know, she was obviously able to go out on her own and go to the shop. And she was going to
travel, like, bus or something to go over there. I'm just surprised if she'd done something else that she wouldn't have put it in her memoir, because she had no problem. I mean, at first, obviously, she denied having involvement in the beginning when they were looking into Virginia missing. But, of course, she is going to. But once it was out, she just... Whoop.
So she was sentenced to 25 years.
30 years plus 30 3 in an asylum.
I'm wondering if... I didn't do the math. Mm-hmm. So I'm wondering if it timed out, or... like if she was within those 3 years of the asylum when she died, or...
I was wondering the same. Was it, and then you spend the rest of your time in an asylum, or every source I said 30 years at prison, 3 years of the asylum. And just as a callback, remember that the one person said, I see prison in your right hand.
Oh.
And an asylum in your left hand. But again, that's why I said, supposedly, the Romani fortune teller.
I'm wondering if she was in the asylum and they just were like, wow, no.
We're not going anywhere.
No. We're not letting you out.
Yeah, and they didn't really say anything. I mean, she served her time. Nothing big happened. There was just no, she was at a women's prison and then a women's asylum.
Wow.
Yeah. Nothing good stuff there. It's just, you read the beginning and, okay, it's a rough start, you know? But just suddenly flip a switch and go, well, I have to kill some people now because my son's in the army.
I wonder though if Ma Barker had thought that by doing something like that, because she was, one of the reports said she was superstitious. I wonder if somehow she'd gotten the idea if she did something, it would protect her sons. I wonder if she would have done it.
I bet she would have.
I bet she would have too.
Yep. She loved them enough to condone everything they did and look the other way.
She cooked for them. She bought their groceries. She paid the bills.
She traveled with them. Yeah. So there's some motherhood for you in this episode.
Wow. We could have saved this one for Mother's Day.
Yeah.
Oh, we're gonna have to find something really good.
Definitely. Well, for Mother's Day and Father's Day, I bet we can find some good stuff. Ooh, it's not an idea for Father's Day. But okay, I'm going to skip that. I'm not going to say it.
Okay, yes.
That's
we don't want
to
ruin anything. All right, so please send us your feedback. If there's something you would like us to talk about or something you would just like to talk to someone about. If you have a good soap recipe.
Oh, no.
If you know how to make...
Don't send us soap now.
If you know how to make tea cakes... I always love a good recipe.
Oh, jeez. Human remains, mas o menos. You can do it or not.
I'm going to eliminate
add
that.
It if you'd like.
Skip that.
You can email us at mysteriesponsorsmayhem@gmail.com. You can go to our website. There's a form to fill out there. We also tend to put what our episodes are going to be as we make them so that you know what's coming up a little bit, at least a bit of a teaser for it. And that's mysteriesmonstersmayhem.com. And our Facebook page is Mysteries, Monsters, and Mayhem. You can look us up that way. And please follow and like everywhere that you can. I mean, if you listen to this on Spotify, then make sure that you're following us there so you get our new episodes. And all of that helps get us out there. And, more listeners, maybe the longer we can keep doing this. Yeah. Anyway, send us stories. We just want crazy stuff. We don't care if it's themed to anything.
You would never be able to pick our themes for us because the way we come about them is so sideways that
It's true. Like, this was supposed to be what? Tough Old Broads?
Spunky Old
Spunky
Broads.
Old Broads.
And they were, but
that's the beauty of it. And we usually come at it from two very different angles,
yes.
which is interesting too. Different backgrounds. So anyway, thank you for listening.
Yes.
Talk to you next week.
Have a good week. Bye.
Bye.